Hello guys, I'm back with a new video. Now remember that we were talking about the three reasons why it was important to teach literature, or it was good or necessary or positive to teach literature as an English teaching tool. Um, and well, in this video I'm going to tell you about the other two reasons, right? Hopefully you already completed the first assignment that will help you get to know what we're trying to illustrate in here. So the second one is a genuine context. Okay, so adopt a moment over here. I'm going to ask you a question. Try to think about it. Yes, try to um, answer over there, right? And it's, why is it a story easier to remember than a collection of unrelated items, right? So I don't know. I don't know if everybody remembers the grammar structure of the second conditional, like by heart. Do you have that in your memory right now? Maybe some of you do, some of you don't. Yes, and probably the ones that remember very well such a structure is because they have either very good memory or because they are teachers as well, and they have explained this topic very recently, or you do it every semester and you have that in your head. But let's say that regular people that are not related to education wouldn't normally remember that, right? Nevertheless, you're most likely to remember experience, a story, something that happened to you in school, something that happened to you while you were teaching, while you were working in a party or something similar, right? Let's go even beyond. Do you remember the cases of factorization that you studied on you know, um, high school? Do you remember anything about uh, the process necessary to do division? Yes. Well, hopefully many of you remember that, but I'm pretty sure that some of you or some people don't, right? And one more time, it is because of that, because it is much easier to remember something that it's a connected series of events, a connected series of happenings that somehow make up a story in your mind, that somehow it's reasonable in terms of a beginning, a middle, and an ending, that has a conclusion, that has some characters that are relatable, because if the story is about your friends, so you have known them for quite a while, or if it's about your students, well, you sort of identify yourself with them, or want to know about them because of this, right? So that is part of the answer why you remember that, right? Like, quite more easier rather than these unconnected things such as grammar or formulas or stuff like that. So basically, remember that we interpret messages in two particular ways. Yes, we have like a collection of sounds and symbols in our head, in our brain, in our memory. Yes. So there's this like a toolbox when I have all the words and their meanings. Yes. Um, and we have also the knowledge of the word and the context of the message to work from. So I remember I placed this example in, I think it was in Formas maybe, about the word fly. Yes, so you have the word fly and you have it as a verb. Yes, so the possibility of taking off from the ground and just projecting yourself into the sky or into the air somehow. So airplanes fly and birds fly and flies fly, right? Um, so we have that, yes. But also we have the insect, right? Like the animal that is the fly, and that it has a determined amount of legs, and that it has wings, and that it has these characteristics on the eyes, and we can tell about what it eats and what it does and his lifespan, etc. Right? So, in order to understand or to use this particular word, well, first of all, we need to access that. toolbox that is our vocabulary somehow, and we also need to decide what is the correct context of use for that. Yes. So basically, from that very process, according to Lindsay and Normand, we are combining the information and making predictions and assigning meanings, right? So that exactly is what we do. What we do when we read a book. We're required to get to know all these different structures and words and ideas, and we need to assign them into the correct interpretation because of the context of the book that we're reading, and all of that is used to predict what is going to happen next, and that is why sometimes we predict well, and we are really happy because, I don't know, we discovered the killer along with Sherlock Holmes, or sometimes something completely unexpected happens, and then we are even more surprised and more satisfied because it is, the element of surprise, depending on the kind of surprise, of course, it may be rewarding, yes, or it is somehow shocking. So we can achieve that. We can achieve that with literature, right? Now, if we go into the next slide, that is the number 11. It sort of reinforced the idea that I was mentioning, that isolated sentences really don't work very well. Yes, even people who are native have trouble remembering and connecting things. So even more for somebody who's learning the language or who has learned it but has the basics, well, different characteristics, right? So all these elements that I have mentioned, the books, the tales, the fables, the riddles, a lot of different things that we can use in literary terms, can provide the idea of connected words, of connected worlds, of connected characters, of connected events. Like everything goes together, in some books more than others, but in general that has the potential to help you with that. An interesting text can supply that need for context, right? So a well-selected text is able to provide you with these possibilities of connection, of avoiding isolation, etc. And something important is that it can focus the efforts to communicate. So if you have a good text, yes, a text that may be attractive for the reader, it's possible that this connection need, that this bonding or links that are necessary to remember, understand, and use more effectively certain grammar patterns or certain language skills, it's going to be better, right? So I would like to just read very briefly the slide number 12 because it's something that I find very accurate in terms of the use of literature. Now it says, it is not easy to see how learners at any level can get interested in and therefore motivated by a dialogue about buying stamps at a post office. There is no plot, there is no mystery, there is no character. Everything proceeds as if communication never created a problem. There's no misunderstanding and there's no possibility of any kind of interaction. So this may be familiar to you in the sense of role plays, for example, right? So probably when you are in first semester or second semesters, you may have loved role plays, and you may have find them like really interesting. Some people probably even there didn't like them, even at that time. But most commonly what happens is that the more role plays you have to do, the more simulations at the post office, at the airport, at the restaurant, at the customs, or inviting somebody to a party or something like that. So if you do that exactly as many textbooks propose, well, they get really boring, yeah. And by the end of 8-9 semester, you really don't want to know anything about role plays, right? Now, maybe I'm generalizing. Maybe some people still love role plays, and especially if you have the possibility of adding something personal, right? That's really fun. That's my opinion, at least. When you're able to create your own scenarios, and when you have the freedom um, to add your personal signature to the role play, right? And to do it maybe with humor or something like that, right? And why are those much more likable for many people? Well, because that is like writing a story. That is like doing actual theater, right? Like doing a play, and that's literature. Yes, like theater, plays, operas, are literature, right? So that may explain why, even if you don't like role plays, when you are able to put something of yourself into it, they work much better. Okay, and then let's go with the final element, that is motivation, right? The number 3. Remember, we're talking about 3 reasons why it might be important or good or necessary um, to teach literature, right? So let's say that literature has the potential, and the word potential over here is really important. Potential is that it might work or it may not. Yes, it has the potential to provide delight or engage in emotions. So just like in movies that make you sad or happy or excited or aroused, or you know, many different reactions. So literature may have the possibility of providing that as well. Again, the word potential is key. Not everybody likes to read. Actually, very few people, proportionally speaking, like to read. So that is why your responsibility as a teacher is so high, right? Selecting the material for students uh, is a big responsibility. Trying to connect with them, trying to motivate them is really important, because otherwise you are going to be the teacher who is responsible for making students hate Shakespeare or Dickens or Garcia Marquez or any of those. And unfortunately, that was the experience for many of us in school, right? Like we were forced to read books that were not interesting for us, that didn't have anything to do with us, or that the teacher was unable to show any connection. Yes? Uh, so we normally read this sort of stuff that was boring, long, and really didn't have anything to do with you. Yes? At least what I try to do with this subject is that you try to find the connection, try to find the interest of students, try to find what they might like or relate to, um, and try to go over with it. Now, if in the end the student doesn't connect because he doesn't really like to read, well, at least you tried, But um, let's say that it's a big responsibility that we can have over there, and we can do our best, right? So something that really happens and that I see that is undeniable, yes, and is that when a student is engaged in reading, yes, and if he or she wants to know what happens next, he's going to continue, he's going to persevere, even though he or she has linguistic difficulties. Yes, despite his difficulties, his hardships, he's going to try and go further on the story. And this doesn't happen, let's say, only in traditional literature. We have a lot of students who loves rock or rap or reggaeton or whatever that is in English, and they don't really, know the language very well, but they sing this nonsense pretending that it's English, and they're really happy, right? But at least they have some sort of connection with the language. Some others like go further, and they go and try to look for the lyrics online and the translations, or even they try to translate them themselves. Well, so these are somehow effects of motivation. Yes, if you are interested about what's happening in the story that is being told, because in the end lyrics are like poems. Yes, uh, That's why even reggaeton singers got poetry awards, because even if we wouldn't like to accept that, it is true. Music of any kind is poetry. Of course, there is good poetry and bad poetry, but well, I'm not getting into this discussion over here. But if they are interested in this literary approach, it's going to be somehow easier for them to get motivated, right? So basically, those are the three reasons. The three reasons I had to share with you. Let's call them positive aspects. You can think of 1,000 more reasons, but my personal belief is that they are sort of included in the first three that I gave you. Nevertheless, it might be nice if you come with a different or additional idea that I didn't mention and that maybe you think maybe good to share. Well, just comment under this video and the post in which it is, and that will be fine. Okay. So with this, we're done with these three good reasons. Now, in the next video, we're going to talk about the problems or the issues or the things that are going to difficult our or harden our possibilities of teaching literature. But that will be on the next video. So thank you very much. Hugs.